Hi, everybody. I see some people already in the chat. I saw a good reaction to my notice that this was coming up. I'm going to wait a little bit to get going because if I start too early, too many people are going to walk in late. And I'm babysitting a potential cat fight here in my office. No fighting, Sterling. No, behave. Uh, so So far, I only see three of you in here, and I see three of you have signed in. Let me know you're there. So, we're all going to learn about grids and kind of the process I use to build a grid. Hi, Dr. Gale. Glad to see you made it. And basically, I'm going to skim through this stuff. You're going to kind of go, whoa, you can take notes if you want, but this is the beginning of my putting together um, a course on how I see working with crystals in the form I use. And if I don't know why you'd be here if you'd never seen one, but anyway, this is a crystal grid I currently have. And I have this one because this grid was suggested by Tim Walter, who's an he's a ley line expert, and he's a house clearer from England. And he and I did some shows last year. And he said, why don't you build a grid for the world? And I thought, well, that's not the least bit pretentious. Besides, you'll see when I talk about what I use, I need people to help me with it, and they have to help me pick which cards to work with. And I mentioned it to a couple of other readers, and they said, well, we'll help. Yeah, it's a good idea. So it was 2 years ago in the fall. Dr. Gale and Jeffrey from Right Color and Danny and I and a couple of other people, we were all talking, and they ended up, Dr. Gale pulled Heart and Jeffrey pulled Merkaba. And this is a combination of Heart and Merkaba. And the crystals that are on here are fluorites and red jaspers and goldstones and honey calcite. You're going to see some of these today. We're looking at things. And green moss agate, green avertine, mother of pearl, blue lace agate, quartz points, and fluorites. And the fluorites that are on here are these, and the ones that are on the edge are octahedrons. They're 8-sided. And there's also some rough fluorites in here. The one in the very center is a fluorite that is, when fluorites are kind of stones that they can form themselves into a very interesting crystalline structure that looks like an 8-sided thing. And I use them a lot and I like them a lot. You're going to see some of those today too. So we're getting to be up there as far as the numbers go. So I'm going to, like I said, this is going to be a drive-by shooting on how to build a grid. The first thing is someone has to decide they want to come and get a reading from me about building a grid. And where we start is I present them with their first choice. Which of these two books do they want to, decks they want to use? These are a deck of cards. And it's Crystal Activations by Lon. And you'll see, they're all very gritty looking forms, shapes. That's earth. This is probably one of the wildest ones. Transition, that makes a beautiful grid. And Tantric Journey, I finished that one just a little while ago for somebody. Makes an interesting grid. But there are all sorts of topics like empowerment or compassion or remembrance. That's a beautiful grid made up. They can reflect that we're going to be looking at your consciousness. And at the bottom of each of the grids is Lon's interpretation of that. And you'll see that when we get to the one we did. So anyway, back to, I could wander forever on those cards. So I say, which kind of thing? And they just have to pick it blind. I mean, it's like they're both have wonderful images in it. They think they'll be led to the right place. So in this case of this, the woman who I'm building this grid for, she had me build one for her with activations a couple of years ago, and it's all worked out brilliantly. So now she wanted relationships. And spoiler alert, this is a card she picked. I'm not going to go through the whole process of how we figure out what the card is, but she picked originality. And so I took a picture of originality and put it on the stage so you can see it more clearly. And the interesting thing is I use a lot of sacred geometry when I'm working with the crystals. And in this one, the interesting part is it's got this stone, I'll show you how we're going to make that, in the middle. But then she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 side stones that reflect the center. And it's as if the center is pollinating out into the world. And the frequency that comes from the stones and originality are, it supports our capacity to be unique and original creators and have unlimited possibilities at every moment. That's very much like the vibration of the number 7. So I use numerology in this. I use shapes. If you look, there's also a lot of 8s. There's one, well, there's 6s here. No, they're 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's a lot of 8 points on this. And there's 8 surrounding the center. And you say, okay, how are you going to do that with stones? This is always the deal. How am I going to take this form and create it with stones? And so what I do, the first thing I do is I take a good look at it and I decide what is most interesting about it for me. And what's most interesting about it for me is the 7 things that are not a part of the circular pattern in the middle, which means I'm going to emphasize by beginning with the circular pattern in the middle and then figure out how I'm going to build the little 7s. And I had to look at them for a while because for a while I thought they were different sizes, but when you actually take a ruler to it, they're the same size. They're just because of where they're placed in the image, they don't look like they're the same size. So I can either make them all the same size, or I can make the ones that are visually to me smaller. I can create those smaller. And y'all are going, how are you going to do that? Okay. You're going to get to see some of it. Okay. When I think about the shape, I think about the shape as it's an image that's in a flat shape, but it's actually in a universe that is not flat. And so I look at the sacred geometry of it. And if that's the part that I think I'm going to have to spend more time with when I teach the class, because sacred geometry gets very complex and there's not a way to show it in 5 minutes. But what I can do is show you on the table. And now I'm going to go to the table and hopefully I'm not going to have to switch back too many more times. I really did try to figure this out so that I didn't have to do that too many times. Okay, table. What I use when I lay out my grids is I have the infamous pie plate, which is a clear pie plate. And I use this form underneath the pie plate, and it fits exactly in the pie plate. And that gives me, if you remember what the shape, what we're trying to work with, and this is square to me. I'm sorry, my camera doesn't work out so well doing that, but this is the center, and I always sort of start from the center. So what was in the center? of the card we're looking at. You guys got to realize when I do this by myself. That's what's going to be in the thing. Is this orange and blue kind of little center. So I shifted out my stones and I broke them into 4 different baskets of color. I'm going to find them. Shoosh. You're hearing things fall in my office because I have a small office and 4 boxes to keep track of. Okay, it's this one. Where's you got those? Yellows and greens. It's greens. I did have this organized, honest to God. Where's the... Yeah, okay, here it is. It's in the middle basket, not in the... Okay. So you can kind of see what I'm working with. This is my basket full of stones. And this is just some of the stones that I have. And I keep my stones, if they're in good original bags that seal, I keep them in the original bags. If not, I put them in these kinds of bags, and because they have a place where I can mark what they are. And this is my yellow clear kind of, it's going to help me figure out what's going to be the stone in the middle. And because it's yellow, these are yellow, and I like to use them a lot because they really do work out nicely for starting the center of the image. And okay. So, and this is yellow adventuring. It's been formed. It's sold at a store that also does beads. They actually, the rock shop I deal with, they started out in the hippy dippy days of the 60s selling beads that people could string together for themselves. So the first stone I want to find is this yellow one and decide how to fit it in. And then I have kind of want to, because I also on the sheets I have what the energy of the stone and what it means, and I want to make sure it fits together. And this one is, and this one, I think, to make the blue in the center, I have a choice between sodalite, lapis, which are all very pretty, but I think I'm going to go with the blue that's in fluorite, because fluorite, if you don't know what fluorite stands for, fluorite, depending on how you work with it and how you set it up, it can breed confidence, direction, and self-love, learning, self-confidence, coordination, and the places where fluorite specializes is in focus, overall balance, and protection. And I'm going to put that together with this stone, the yellow adventuring, which also is balance, protection, enhanced flow. And it's for growth. And if you remember, this is for originality. It's for her to reach out and find new and better ways to do things and bring those things into the world. So that's where we're going to be. So now we're going to go. So I'm kind of happy with that center. I think the center looks like the center. And as long as it makes sense to me and I can find stones in those colors, I will change colors if I don't think what I have available to me works. Now, this is where it gets fun. because we have little blue. You notice there's 8 little blue buds around there. And this is azurite. These stones are azurite, and they're real pretty blue. And I also have, so I'm going to try those out and see what they look like. Now you're going to understand why I do this on a pie plate, because I can move things around quickly. And if you're just doing it on a piece of paper, they don't stay contained. So, and this is old stock azurite, which means this is pre-COVID azurite chips. One, do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. I told you guys it's not going to be fascinating to watch all the time. 8. And I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now I have to figure out how to put them around so that they're evenly spaced. And that's what also is helpful in being able to move things around. And you can see they're going to be slightly different because they're all individual crystals. So that's option 1. That's my azurite option. In case you're wondering, yes, there are little globs of glue that are stuck to the pie plate, and I cannot get them off. So it makes my surface a little wonky to work with sometimes. Okay, and this has... There is also another stone, and it's actually blue. It's called bloodstone. And it's actually blue, and I'm going to look at this, and I'll consider this one. And my other option would be eight bloodstones. And bloodstones are fascinating. When you look at them in indoor light, they look like dark blue or almost black stones. But when you take them out into the light, you can see why they're called bloodstones. You can see the red shining out of them. And they're very tiny. So I'm going to try 1. See, they stick to me. They're so tiny. One more. I want that one. No, that one's too big. I want this one. Okay. And think about when you use natural stones, and these are all natural chipped stones. They're hard to get out of this bowl. They're not all going to be the same size, and not going to all be the same dimension. Occasionally, you will get them that they are. And I have to look. Do I think that looks? I think it's going to be azurite, guys. I think bloodstone isn't doing it for me. Although I've used bloodstone to fill in a field where I wanted to put something that was dark and seemed very mixed up when you looked at the image, or the image seemed to say that to me. So, and I'm going to tell you guys, I'm picking all these up because if I let them just lie around, they will wander to the floor and I will step on them in the middle of the night, and it's not pleasant. Okay. Let's see what we got in here. No, I think that's what we like. So, and I'll keep the azurites with it. And I keep a little notebook beside me, and I write down what my center stone is, what this one is, and then it's going to be the azurites. And then we're getting to the next sort of complicated part, which is the green that runs around it, because in this, it's just this lovely field of green with some other blue in it. And this is greens. You can get chips that are all kinds of chips. These are citrine chips, and they're really good. I may be using these out here where it wants little light things to show up. Those are great for making those kind of emphasis. And you are. Oh, this was another thing I considered. And these are purple sapphires. But I think I'm going to use them to match on the stones I'm going to put on the outer edges, to make the other little things that are going to be the matches to this, but smaller. This is like Obsidian. I've got kyanite, which is an incredible connection stone, and these are really rough, but they're small, and you can use them to connect energy together. And I've got a couple choices for how I'm going to build my green field. And blues. Green. Nope. I'm going to show you an interesting crystal. I use it actually quite a bit in building grids. I look at it in this one, but its colors are off for this. But this is called lepidolite. You see, it's like in long flat sheets. It's real interesting to work with. And you can actually break them apart pretty easily. And they can make like a fill field. If I wish I had a stone like that in green, I do not. Mother Nature didn't grace me with that. Okay. Now this is my greens. I have these agates, which have a lot of blue and green in them. I have flat out green aventurine, which you can work to do that. And I have green calcite, which I'm going to let you look at, but I don't think it's going to work the way I want it to. But this might. The chrysocolla might. It looks blue, but it's also very green. Chrysocolla is one of the stones they find around a lot of where you find a lot of I'm blanking on the name of it. I'll show you. Malachite. Where you find a lot of malachite. Malachite and all those stones are all colored by copper, so they're all kind of hanging around each other. Actually, when I look at this now, this looks more blue than green, but it really can look green. So we're going to try to figure out how I'm going to work out this ring of green that's going to have those little azurite crystals. It's got a real broad variety of greens. And these are agates that are just, you can spread them around to give you that impression of color that you might want. That's kind of a big one. That's why I don't want to use calcites, because they're too big. These are. Oops. Two small ones to replace for a big one. Okay, and then in the inside here, I'll have those little flowers, and then you do have a green field. Then I have to work on what I'm going to put out there for the blues, and I think that's where I'm going to stop right now because I'm getting a headache. I'm not used to talking while I do this, and But I can tell you, there's several things you can do. You can get lots of little chips. You can use little chips to make little bitty grids. And like I said, the okay, I'm coming back to me because for some reason I'm getting a headache. And it may just be that I can't talk and do this all at the same time. I'll come and look at and see if there are any comments if you want to ask any questions. Oh, lots of comments out here. And what you'll also see me working with is I've studied all the different stones, and I have a big giant matrix, and it's got the first column is the stone, the second column is the color, the middle column is the attribute. And in other words, when I studied a lot of different places and how spiritually they felt the stones worked, I worked with that. And then I put on in the fourth column what it's on this grid for, what balance of energy I want to bring on this grid. And it's kind of easier to show you how all that lays out. Oops. I'm trying not to screw with you guys too much, but I'm ending up having to put stuff on my keyboards, and that's not good. It moves the cursors around. Okay. In the case of the grid for the world, which was the heart and the Merkaba, the central stone was purple fluorite, and its attributes are learning, self-confidence, balance, and coordination. And it was to bring overall balance to the grid. And then around it, you see there's 3 red stones. One of them is a red jasper, which is to get through hardships, to have new ideas for actions, and to stay organized. And that was a grounding stone. And then the other 2 stones, it's hard to tell when you're not really looking at them, but the 2 on the bottom are what are called gold stones. And I tell you, it's to the right and left of the center at the bottom. And it's courage, positive attitude, gently uplifting, and it was for energy. And that's what happens when you get your stones figured out. And they don't always have to be the same stone. The Merkaba, if you've never seen it, and I can show you one actually. Guess what? I actually have one on my desk if I can get it out. Where did I put my stuff? It's white. So this is the Merkaba. This is the form that when all the forms are done in sacred geometry and the 2 pyramid shapes form together, and one comes up and one goes down. That forms the Merkaba, and it's for the completion in the whole. And we were taking that shape, translating into a flat form, and then finding the crystals to talk about how you can bring universal balance and energy into everything. It's not much of a task. The things we do that seem like fun. So when you're working with the grids, that's what helps me is when I'm looking at, like when I was digging through the drawers yesterday and pulling out blue stones and yellow stones and that stuff. I mean, I have whole drawers full of pink stones. I have whole drawers full of amethysts and amethyst points and all of those things, and they all have different meanings. And that's what, if you hang in with me and we talk about grid building, we'll talk about the power of all those things. Let's see, everybody's saying hi to everybody because I was jammering on and they knew I wasn't watching the chat. Hi, Priscilla. Hi, Dr. Gail says hi, Priscilla. I love Dr. Gail being in my garden. She and Sharon Stipe, they say hello to everybody. I'm not real good at saying hello to everybody. hello, old oil painter, and she sent me some wonderful uh, salves, comfrey salve and a dandelion salve, and I have on my desk. She made me this sweetgrass braid, and it just smells beautifully. So thank you, oil painter. See, people can do all kinds of stuff and help each other. Chromosomes here. If I do the class, and it's still an if, because what I'm going to do when I do this class, I'm going to pre-tape it so that you'll know kind of where we're going from here to here in this class and here to here in this class. I have no idea how many classes it will be. If I do it, when I do it, it will be done on Patreon because I'm tired of fighting YouTube. I have some really good followers who it shows they're members on YouTube, but when I send out my mass emails for the Oracle Gardeners who are they're members, they're not just subscribers. Some of them just aren't getting the emails, and it's very frustrating. So I'm going to try Patreon. I talked to some other. Oh, what's the name? The name of the. Oh, I'm going to put this up because it's better. It's this. It's originality, and as you can see, you can just tell from the colors. It's a lot of uh, sacral chakra and colors, and then it's going into the green of your heart and what's in your heart, and then the blue and how do you communicate it outwards, and then what's going to happen from this. And I don't know that my pointer doesn't point at it, but all the little orange bits that are around it, that's the originality from the center spreading out again. And I think it's just for where this woman was. I'm constantly amazed because I won't go into all of how we picked the card, but um, this one so perfectly fits where she is and what she's trying to do right now. So Deanna, that's what it is. It's called originality, and it comes from Lon's relationship oracle deck. Yeah, this is. I'll tell you, that's who I learned it from, Arlene. I went into. I ran into crystal grids in 2017, the fall of 2017. I'd never seen them before. I worked with crystals. I used to give people little fluorite crystals after my readings because I've always believed crystals are like little recorders and they hold our thoughts and our energy. And I'd have people come back to me later and say, I kind of forgot some of the stuff we talked about in the reading. And then one day I found it at the bottom of my purse, and lo and behold, what you talked about started to happen around me. So I worked with crystals for a long time. I didn't do it that formally. When I came back in 2017, I was fascinated. I read Judy Hall. There's several different books you can get about grids. And then when you get into it, then you start to learn about sacred geometry. And I found a really good, understandable, I won't put it that way, book about sacred geometry that kind of led you through the platonic shapes and the forms and the numbers. And I really think to work with grid, and Judy talks about that too. Um, so let's see. I mean, I am not making this up in my own mind, guys. This is a long-standing thing that's happened. Black and white template. Yeah, Ronnie, you got to have something. I used to use a lot of shapes other people were using to make crystal grids, and there you can buy. If you don't want to create one that's permanent, you can buy these wooden um, things that you can put your stones on, and you can pretty much find how to build it every form off of them. They're out there, um, but it just helps you. It helps me organize my thoughts, and I write down everything I do. I write down which stones are in the center. Um, I'll have another show where we build out from where we are right now, probably next Tuesday. It's just for some reason I'm getting a headache today. It's been very warm in Texas. I don't do very warm well. Yeah, I've used little chips at times to cover a part of a thing that if I wanted it to look a certain way. Um, Amazonite. I'd use Amazonite. I'd use um, certain types of the spirit stone. I'm blanking. Uh, I know for sure Amazonite works. I know for sure sometimes mixed up agates like this with lots of different blue and other colors mixed together because you're trying to unmix that for yourself when you're dealing with depression. And okay, anybody want to type in what is the purple stone that we always know goes for spirit? The one that, and I'm totally blanking. I tell you guys, something's telling me that this is time. And let's see, hide current comment. Okay, let's see what we got. Well, my Patreon is going to Patreon. My Patreon's going to be totally heading towards grids and um, crystals and that stuff and the things I teach with that. I created a membership level on YouTube because I did that 2 years ago to help teach people to garden. And people who are on that can come every other Saturday and join me for about 2.5 hours where we read in the garden. So you begin to understand how reading in the garden is different than reading the cards. Um, Among other things, my garden does not read politics. So. And yes, all kinds of living plants. They have the divine order. They have the Fibonacci, that the seashell thing that people think of. There's a lot of sacred geometries. There's a lot of if you ever slice an apple down the middle, apples have 5 petals on their flowers, and they also have 5 seeds in the middle, and they are set up like a 5-sided, like a pentagon. So, uh, yeah, there's a lot of all of nature has. It may not have a lot of straight sides, but it does in some crystals. But yep, Leah said, yeah, it has 5-seeded pod. That's true. And this is true. Stay hydrated, everybody, because it's crazy right now. Okay. Is it possible to build a grid that holds our healthy dreams to hang by our bedsides or nightstands? Absolutely. If you find stones that's one of the things I like to do if I create a group that works on building grids. I love building grids. I really, really love doing it. I have found a pattern that works for me, and it apparently works for other people because they keep telling me amethyst. That's the stone I couldn't remember. Thank you. Okay. But yes, it's possible to build a grid to hold your healthy dreams beside your bedstand. And that's why I was saying they sell online. They sell these little build your own grid sort of patterns that just make it easier to follow the lines. You can also just Google around, find and print them off on your printer if you have a printer, and just use pieces of paper. Because when I was first building grids, I did that. Also, when I was first building grids, I had people who wanted to have the stones not affixed to a place. They wanted to be able to move them around. So I created, and I have one left because I found it very frustrating to send people their grids. Where'd it go? How frustrating. I can see it, but I can't get to it. I will tell you, my drawers are probably better settled right now than they have been in a while because I had to dig through and find everything. Let's see if there's anything. Anyway, I would print, because I had a way to do this with my printer. I would print the form on that they needed to use. I'd send them a picture. I'd mark each crystal, and then they could build it for themselves. And I'll tell you that what happened with that was they never could build it themselves. So I'd always end up having to spend some time with them. Anyway, I mean, you saw how many stones I pulled out. I have this many bags full of stones otherwise. I have little stones, I have shiny stones, I have round stones. I have sodalite stones. But if you get in mind, if you look up what you think you want, you figure out where you want to go. Because that's how I started. I'd just go in the rock shop and buy what I needed for that one. If you start building enough of them, you'll have like a library of stones. And oops. Come on. Do I sell garden kits? Yes. If you go to my website at Crystal Directions, I have about 30 left. And when those 30 are gone, there will be no more. Because the two people who helped me do those can't help me anymore for various sundry reasons. Not that they don't want to. Am I muted? Can you hear me? I'm going to go to the very bottom. Can someone type me and tell me? Okay. Nobody else is saying that I'm muted. I'm muted. Okay. Somebody wants to know if you can buy gardens. Yes, you can. And they come with the 5 stones you need to read. They come with an explanation sheet of keywords on how to read them. And then you're welcome, if you have a garden, to come and be a part of my class. And let's see. Do I sell garden kits? Yes. And the reason the garden was created was because at the same time I was creating the gardens, I was also building tons and tons and tons of grids because I was the first person people could find who could build them for them. And I built a lot of grids in 2020 and 21 and 22. This 23, it's sort of slowed down. 24 has been very slow. That's just because the universe is guiding me in other directions. But at the same time, 2 years ago, I designed the garden. It comes with the silk scarf that you can read the stones on. It comes with the explanation sheet on how to read them. And if you get a garden kit, you get 2 complimentary trips to be part of the garden party. And the garden party always has about 4 or 5 people in it. And the way we read the garden is we read each other's questions. We bring questions in from the outside world. But I'm going to tell you, the best thing about the garden is it tells time. It can tell you what season things are going to come in. And when you get used to reading it, you can tell whether it's going to be early summer, midsummer, late summer. And I'm working with stones to get them to tell days. But if you want a garden kit, go to my website. They'll be there. And it's a great way to learn stones because the stones that are in there are foundational to what we all need to know. Let's see. Okay. Leah, I'm going to tell you, I would be very, very careful about drinking. They make those cups where the crystals are in a concealed thing in the bottom and they don't leak into the water. That's not so bad. But there's a lot of people that years ago when I was first working with stones, they were throwing um, stones into water all kinds of ways. And a lot of these stones, the chrysocolla and malachite, you do not want to put that in water because what makes those stones green is copper, and you can actually give yourself copper poisoning. That's why I warn people um, that uh, to not put stones down where little kids, because they look like hard candy, and little kids don't know the difference. My kids are too big to eat the stones, and my cats don't seem terribly interested in the idea. Leah thinks I look Scandinavian. I actually have a lot of Viking blood in my genetics, but my whole family that I know of are from off the boat Irish and Scots Irish. So that's the same thing. If you read about British history, it's a big chunk of it the Scandinavian countries are part of. So. Okay, people can hear me. Thank you. Okay, this is from Oil Painter. I love my garden. It's a very unique way to read energies. And it's a good buy. It's a good guide for your body because the stones in it are body, mind, spirit, grounding, and clarity. And if you're just interested in how the garden reads, every Friday night I do a show for the coming week with Jeffrey. And Jeffrey Ripe Color reads tarot cards, and he's a very, very good reader. He is an excellent reader. That man knows so much more about the symbols and the signs and the meanings of the tarot. And he went to Akiba Academy, I think, in Brooklyn, and he has a very, very heavy grounding in all of those kinds of signs and symbols. And and then he ran a company for years where he designed specialized merchandise, T-shirts, and things with all of the sacred symbols and records. And so he's a lot of fun to listen to. But he and I read together, and it's not a long show. And we've been we've taped July and August, and we were going to do September too because we thought as long as we're together we'd do it because he's in Mexico City and I'm here. And his computer just said, nope, you're not doing September. So we didn't get September done. But if you go and watch that show, I talk about the stones and I explain what I'm looking at. And this last couple of weeks have just been incredible. He and I have been so much on the same page about the energies that we're reading in the world. Okay. Okay, I will. They're going nowhere unless they learn how to walk out of the drawer that they're in. Um, good. And Helena said she uses hers to just give her the easiest look at what's going on around you. It's incredibly freeing because when I was told I was going to have to make this, and it was one of those channeling things that we do when we can't think of what else to do with our lives. And um, I knew which stones I had. I knew I had to have 5 stones because 5 stones, the number 5 represents change. And then I had keystones that go around the corner. And at the time I was organizing the garden, I was reading a lot of Meister Eckhart, he was a priest in the Middle Ages, like from like in around 1,000 something, and he he was part of the spiritual part of what the church should have been had it stayed on the straight and narrow. And a lot of what he was saying about how things grow and all that was incorporated. So when you get the pages that come with it, you can read what Mr. Eckhart said. I did 2 things. I did a whole part of it in my own handwriting, which I don't think is crappy handwriting, but apparently a lot of people couldn't read it. So we also did it in type. What I'm doing right now is for each of the spaces that's in the garden. During the time I was creating it that summer, I was having a vision of where we were going to be, what happens to you at that point in the garden, and it all had to do with how we see the world. It's like a different place, and how you see the world. Like um, if you're in a building, that's usually you're dealing with things that have the artifices of the ego, and if you're out in the garden, you're being opened up to the universe and letting all the information come in. And anyway, there's little short paragraphs of about that I'd wake up in the middle of the night and dictate them into a phone, and then the next day, every day, I had to get up and type this stuff. And when I finished, I put those together. And when I first sold the first round of gardens, we had some rather large classes with people that had all the information I'd had in my visions, along with the stuff that I include with the garden now. Well, as soon as I finish it, and y'all can thank Chat GPT, because if it wasn't for them, these things wouldn't get being filled out into full pages. But I go over it. It says what I want it to say. But I'm about to put a compendium PDF that will go, and it will explain what visions I saw when that space came into being, when it was created. And you'll have that reference too. Not promising it tomorrow. I guarantee it's not going to happen tomorrow. But I am doing it for each of the spaces because I had kept everything. It was all documented. Well, if I haven't bored you all to death, if someone has a really pressing question, type it quickly and I'll look at it. But otherwise, I don't know. I'm cratering. This may be teaching me, yes, you have to do this, but you have to do it away from the pressure of knowing people are watching you. And Sharon Sipe just put up where you can find the gardens. And the other thing Jeffrey and I are doing is in September or October, we're going to start our 6 to 7 week, depending on how quickly everyone gets together, tarot class. And our tarot class, it's a lot of fun. We give you also PDFs, lots of pictures, lots of explanation, lots of stuff. It's just not just listen to us yap, yap, yap. But and it will be he's really good. I'm glad I'm co-teaching with him. Part of the tarot class is numerology, because if you get 1 through 10 and then you understand the 4 basic suits in the tarot, you've got almost the whole deck done. And then we do the major arcana. We do the journey of the fool, which is really a journey all of us are on. It's all where we learn. And then we just practice reading. And I have a group that broke off that we trained, and they're going to be meeting tonight. I don't know if any of them are in this or not, but I don't know if they're going to have the meeting tonight because of the debate. But I was going to go over and talk to them for a bit. We meet every once in a while and say, how's it going? They are turning out to be incredibly good readers. And it's just, once you kind of get your head organized around those minor arcana cards, it gets a whole lot easier. And so I've just got all sorts of plans for my life. But right now I think I'm going to go drink a glass of electrolytes and calm down. And love to all of you. Thank you for showing up for this. And for the 6 that just popped back in, if you go to the beginning, we'll talk about what the card was. Next week we will meet. We will be putting the green field around, and it'll probably be a week today. We'll put the green field around in it. I'll talk about building the accent stones and how I do that. I think there's nothing wrong with sticking 2 stones together. And I've never read a book that said it was. But anyway, I just really, really appreciate everybody showing up. And I will see y'all, if not too, well, if you're an Oracle Gardener, we are going to have a class on Saturday. Sunday I have Scott. I'll be with Scott. It ought to be an interesting show because it will be post-debate, and then we will know whether Trump showed up or Um, and I know Joe Biden's going to show up and he's going to do a kick-ass job. He is the nicest man. I met Joe Biden in 2005. Yeah, I ran a major Democratic event. It was the first major Democratic event that had more than 1,000 people at it since the day John Kennedy was killed. I mean, that's how shy people were about bringing Democrats into Dallas, with good reason. But um, anyway, he was there. Obama was there. Biden was there. Harry Reid was there because he was president of the Senate at the time, and it was fun because Harry Reid, he was teeny tiny. I mean, I'm 5'4" and I'm usually the shortest person in the room. He was down here on me, and he had these big, Secret Service guys around. It was kind of fun, and he came up and he goes, "Now, ma'am, explain to me about." And I said, "What do you want to know?" Because I was one that they always pointed everybody to. She knows all the answers. Not true, but he was a little shy about going out and talking. And I said, "Well, surely you've talked to an outside rally." "Well, he's from Nevada. Unless you're Trump and he did it this year, you're not crazy enough to have an outside event in Nevada." And he'd never spoken to a crowd like that. He loved it. He said, "If you ever going to do anything again here, just give my office a call. We'll be here." I mean, he loved it. And of course, Biden loves to talk, and Obama was just brilliant. I mean, the closest thing I've ever seen energetically to Obama was when I was a 14-year-old girl and I saw the Beatles live in their first tour going across America. That same, well, we all talk about energy. I mean, that same energy that compels you in, they're just, and when he got out of the limousine and somebody said, "You got to go tell him where to go." 2005. Yep, it's 2005. And I've met him several times since. I've been hostess at um, a house party that Biden spoke at. My kids all have pictures growing up of being around Biden and being around these people. My youngest was going off to college the summer that Obama picked Biden to be the VP. And I said, "We have a picture of you with Biden." He said, "No way." And I said, "Yeah." And it's a picture of her name at that point was Patrick, but she was walking behind Biden carrying a tray of food going thumbs up because she didn't want to get in the line and get all mixed up with the political people. But the only reason she went to that house party was because it was at Doug's, and Doug always had the best food, and I could always get her to come if I had the best food. Yeah. And I also, folks, I mean, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've also met Ted Cruz, so I got to tell you, it's not all sunshine and roses out here. But I've also met and sat and talked with and gave some political advice to Colin Allred when he was running for state house. And he is absolutely magnificent. If you live in Texas, you have got to go vote for Colin. Colin is such a cut above what we have now. And he has, if you like the way Jasmine speaks, Jasmine Crockett, she comes from the same area. I've met her too. Jasmine is absolutely wonderful. And she is that sharp and she is that quick. And she did come up with the bleach blonde bodybuilding, whatever it was, on her own, just sitting there. I mean, she really is that smart. And her office was also smart enough to go and to copyright that statement so that and the Republicans tried to go copyright it and they found out her staff had beat them to it. Good for them. Go make some money. And y'all have a lovely day. I don't know, oil painter. I really, will Trump walk off? I've read with readers. I read politics not on camera, and I've read with them about it some. And I don't think he will, but I think, yeah, pray for Colin. He's a great guy. But about tonight, I don't know that he'll walk off. I don't know. I know that I know I was so deep into politics that when we were in local politics that if I heard someone order 2,000 yard signs and we're far enough in the campaign, I could tell you how much money they had left in their budget because I could back engineer if they had that much money to spend on yard signs. What else was going on? Um, Trump's refused to turn in his campaign finance report, and the only reason he would do that is because he's not doing what the numbers they're putting out that he raised this much after this event. That's all BS. So, yes, go see Jeffrey. He's sitting down in Mexico City. It's the rainy season started, but he likes it there. So, whatever happens, I think it's going to happen for our highest good. And what we need to think about is every day, I don't spend time on the Orange Menace. I spend time surrounding Joe Biden with light. He needs it. Kamala needs it. And any person that's running in your area that's a decent person that should go support him. And one of the things you can do, I mean, I know a lot of us are housebound and we don't want to go out in this nasty weather, but writing postcards is really effective now. That's almost as good as walking up to someone's door. And they'll get you, you can get a list, you can talk to campaigns if they're doing that. It's really a very effective way of helping. If not, just walk and talk to people you know. Thank you to everyone. Have a good day. Sharon's saying, I got to get out of here. Bye.